Hi, and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. And today we've got a special guest, Johnny Knight of Uprise Energy. How are you, Johnny?
Hey, I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Been following the podcast for a while now, so it's a pleasure to join you.
Okay, perfect. So just to kick things off then, Johnny, just give a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into the position you are today.
Sure. So, I was lucky to grow up here in San Diego, and my family was in the boat building business, and my dad was kind of one of those guys that had a can-do sort of attitude, and his humble little boat repair business that he started out of the back of his pickup truck grew to be one of the biggest custom yacht manufacturers in the world. And so that company developed some innovative composite manufacturing techniques for the custom yachts they were building. And because of that reputation of being leaders with composites, that company got approached in the 90s by the big wind turbine companies because they were experiencing some serial failures with their big wind turbine blades. These great big heavy blades were flexing and cracking. So they came to the boat company to see if we could develop a fix for these blades. And that blade repair business was successful. It evolved into new blade manufacturing. We were building blades for Siemens and Vestas, GE, all the big guys in the industry. And we grew to be a pretty big wind energy company. But we exited those companies, and a few years went by, and actually the Fukushima earthquake happened. And at that point, the ugly side of nuclear energy was revealed for the world to see. And so that's what kind of lit a fire under me and said, hey, here we had this success in the wind energy business. We hit a few home runs. I wonder if we could take our background and experience and leverage that in a way to give the world something that it needs that it doesn't currently have. And so this wasn't about just creating a new product for the sake of it. This was identifying a problem in the world. And what we found was that, there's billions of people around the world that don't have access to reliable power. And the main reason that they suffer without reliable power is the absence of a reliable energy power grid. The power grid that's electrifying this office right here, just doesn't exist. And so for those people that are living and working beyond the edge of the grid, well, if they do have power, the majority of them are relying on diesel generators, which we all know that they're bad for the environment, but they're also very expensive to run. And if you have fuel, okay, they run and they're great, but fuel isn't always available. So this was all. So we set out to see if we could come up with a more reliable, cost-effective energy solution for those people beyond the edge of the grid. And that's what spurred the innovations that we've created here at Uprise Energy.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think just to give a bit of insight, going back to what you were saying, I'm going to add this to the stream. So Jonathan's father is John Knight, that he spoke about, who not only created this original business, but is a super famous boat builder here, an architect and engineer in San Diego. And this is one of his key creations, will I say, Jonathan? It's the stealth boat, the M80 Stiletto. So can you give a bit of background about this? Because this is the quality of the engineering John's able to provide and what he's able to take into the wind energy business.
Yeah, this M80 Stiletto project was it's one of the more unique and identifiable projects. We were known for making luxury yachts mostly, but we were approached by a team that saw the benefit of creating this unique M-hull design that would create an efficient boat that would go through the water, but it would capture the wake energy off the boat. So what started as a solution for the Venetian canals, where they were experiencing erosion on the side of the canals caused by the wakes off the back of the boat, evolved into this proposal to the US Navy for creating a stealth vessel that could operate clandestinely in the littoral zone. And so this was a evolution of that M-hull design. This was actually a double M-hull. But what you're looking at here is a boat that was 60 feet, I'm sorry, 80 feet long, 60 feet wide. It would travel over 60 knots, and it was built out of all carbon fiber and Kevlar. And at the time that we launched it, this was the largest all carbon fiber structure in the world. And I haven't checked up on it lately, but it may still have that designation.
Yeah, super impressive. So, thinking back to talking about like the sort of diesel generator industry sector. So we start talking about, let me bring in another image in here, Jonathan, just now. Let's see, add that to the stream. Yeah, so to me, this is actually looking brand new. It's not actually been used yet, so it won't get pretty dirty from the diesel. But for people out there, this is a portable diesel generator. So it's a 10 kW, can create quite a lot of power. I think when people are starting to think about diesel generators, certainly they don't realize how big the industry is. I was just doing some research offline just now. So, globally right now, the diesel generator business is an $18 billion industry sector. It's around about $4 or $5 billion in the US just now. Of that market space, you're looking at, 43% for residential, small commercial use before it goes into the industrial side of things as well. So it's a massive industry sector. And even though we're going to this green economy, people need to realize that the diesel generator business is increasing rapidly as well, because as Jonathan said earlier, there's places where they didn't have power. So you've got like India, Brazil, most countries in Africa, lacking power. And the first power source they're going to go to is more and more diesel generators, which do create huge amounts of emissions into the environment. So, the research I was doing is it's going to be a $30 billion industry sector by 2030. So this is the traditional diesel generator. Now, let me bring this one in here and you can explain. This is the Uprise model. In fact, let me just bring in the video. I think that'll be better for people to see.
Yeah, so here at Uprise, we've created a clean energy alternative to the diesel generator. So what we call it the Uprise Energy Mobile Power Station, which on one hand, at a very basic level, you might consider it a large portable battery that recharges itself from the wind and the sun. But the reality is the core technology here is the portable wind turbine. And that's what we've created from scratch. And so with our background in wind energy, we knew the challenges of creating good power, especially at the small scale. Because for anybody that knows anything about small wind, you'll know that that market segment just hasn't really caught much traction. And it's because the technology just hasn't been there. And the current state of the industry requires much higher wind speeds than what are commonly found around the world. So when we set out to develop our mobile power station, we had certain performance metrics that we would have to meet. And in our case, we targeted the average wind speed around the world, which is 10 miles an hour or 4.5 meters per second. And that's considerably lower than what conventional wind turbines require to run. But through some exhaustive engineering and some proprietary innovations around our electronics, our blade design, and our whole power control systems, we've been able to create a system that makes really good, reliable power in those low wind conditions.
Yeah, so you're going into a market. The way I think of it for people is it's like Tesla going into the car market. They've essentially gone into this car market, and to me, a Tesla is like a computer. I know you've got a Tesla, Jonathan, but a Tesla is essentially a computer on wheels. Yeah. So you're going into the diesel generator market space, and essentially for people out there, it's small wind turbines, but really you're going in there and you've got big players like Caterpillar, Cummins, Rolls-Royce, Atlas Copco. I know these are the four big ones I knew back from the UK that did the generators for offshore oil rigs, etc. So it's such a massive market space. And what are if you're looking at your product compared to their types of product, what are the major advantages of them switching to Uprise rather than continuing with, say, a Caterpillar 10 kW generator?
Well, so there's a economic motivation to switch because we produce power at a lower cost per kilowatt hour. There's a huge environmental motivation to switch. We actually wrote a white paper that compared the economic and environmental benefits of using an Uprise Energy portable wind turbine instead of a diesel generator. And for every wind turbine that you use, you're going to save roughly $2 million in fuel costs alone over the life of the turbine. And for every turbine, you're going to eliminate roughly 100,000 pounds of CO2 emissions. Now, if you wanted to accomplish that same amount of CO2 capture by planting trees, you would need to plant roughly 70,000 trees to match that 100,000 pounds of CO2 emission elimination. So and that's for every turbine. And here at our factory in San Diego, we're geared up to build hundreds of these a year at this factory, but we have plans to scale the business in well into the thousands of units per year.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So if you're thinking about, the use cases of your turbine, so right now, who's actually testing your turbine?
Yeah, so we have one of our wind turbines up at the Idaho National Laboratory. So this is a division of the U.S. Department of Energy. They have some pro forces military teams that are testing the wind turbine and giving us some military level feedback on it. So we're moving forward in those federal government military applications in a partnership with Idaho National Laboratories. We are also under contract with the California Energy Commission. We're here in San Diego, and where we're building a number of units to be demonstrated in simulated emergencies throughout the state. Here in California, for those that are unaware, because of the recent wildfires that we've experienced, the Energy Commission has created a new policy. They call it Public Safety Power Shutoff, PSPS. And what that is if there's a weather condition that is coming in that has the potential to knock down power lines and create more wildfires, well, the utilities here in the state of California are no longer going to take that risk. They're going to proactively turn off the grid. And so the Energy Commission, they came out with a solicitation called MORBUGs, Mobile Renewable Backup Generators. So basically, they're looking for alternatives to diesel generators for this emergency power response. And so the piloting and demonstrations that we're doing with the Energy Commission is basically a vetting process for the utilities throughout the state who will ultimately adopt our wind energy system en masse because they have a legal mandate to be prepared for those future emergencies. And our technology is a perfect alternative to the diesel generators. And actually, here at our facility in San Diego, we have partnered with another company, Rocket Truck, who has some innovative hydrogen fuel cell technologies. And so right now, the Energy Commission has issued 7 contracts on this MORBUGs initiative, and Uprise has one of the contracts, and Rocket Truck also has one of the contracts. So 2 of the 7 solutions are being built right here in this building that I'm sitting in.
Yeah, that's super impressive. So if you think about, other parts of the world, so I know you've gone across the world in many places to be promoting it, but, one of your biggest partners and supporters is AWS and their new energy division. So tell us a little bit about how you create the relationship with AWS and what are AWS looking from Uprise to do?
Well, kudos to Amazon Web Services and the Amazon parent company for their commitment towards a clean energy future. Not only have they created a $2 billion clean energy fund, but they've also created a clean energy accelerator in AWS. And so last year was the second cohort of the Clean Energy Accelerator, and Uprise Energy was a part of that cohort. So I think they got 600 applications from around the world. Uprise was one of them, and they selected a cohort of 10 companies for an online accelerator program. Mind you, this was at the still pandemic era. And then that culminated in a demo day, a meet and greet in Lisbon, Portugal, where Amazon connected us with a number of their utility power partners so we could develop business relationships together. Well, in the process of working with Amazon Web Services, AWS, we really got along well. And so we've since formed a partnership that we are co-developing some of our data layer communication features, and we're developing some machine learning algorithms that are going to optimize the performance of the wind turbine. But we're also a part of the AWS family now. And so we get invited to go to events and participate. And so I was in Abu Dhabi at the ADIPEC, world's largest energy show, as a guest of Amazon here in November. And just last week, I was in Houston at CERAWeek as a guest of Amazon, where we were invited to be in their Agora house, is what they called it. So we get opportunities to engage with the Amazon network and participate with Amazon in these various outreach endeavors that they're a part of.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And then you started speaking a little bit about the data piece. And, this is obviously, we're talking about the blockchain, but renewable energy and systems like yours that are going out there, they're capturing so much data as well. It's like essentially as part of, people have to understand this turbine you've created with your father and the team at Uprise. Ultimately it's capturing so much data that people can use as well to actually understand not only the creation of energy, but energy consumption as well. So give a bit of insight to how you think renewable energy, the blockchain, is everything sort of coming together in this decentralized system.
Yeah, sure. Well, the data component is a very interesting component. Now, from a operational standpoint, the owner-operators of our wind turbines will be able to monitor and control all of their wind turbines that they have from one central location. So most of our customers will be adopting multiple units, hundreds, if not thousands of units into their fleet. So they'll be able to sit in one control station, see what all of their assets are doing on their AWS custom dashboard that shows their real-time performance, all of their historical performance. The machines are monitoring their own health and making sure that they don't, and if they require any maintenance, they'll alert the operator. So the maintenance efforts are more surgical in nature. The technicians will only need to go to the site when needed because these machines are designed to run autonomously. So the remote communication and control feature is really pretty exciting. But the data collection that you touched on represents another value chain in the system. And so while the world runs on data these days, there's still a lot of parts of the world that are not producing data because they're not connected. So that's really exciting because our wind turbines represent a power and communication solution in remote areas, many of which have been disconnected from the rest of the world. So we're going to be able to collect data because we're going to generate the power and we're going to offer the communication solution in these remote areas. So any type of sensor that you want to put on the system, whether it be weather sensors or otherwise, you'll be able to collect data in these remote areas and have that available, which is going to be very valuable.
Yeah, that's super interesting as well. I think when people are thinking about us moving forwards, you spoke about the grid there, and we're moving to this electrified system from essentially a fossil fuel-based system. Now, Elon Musk keep talking about the planet's managed to last here 4.5 billion years because of this big shiny thing in the sky called the sun and powers this, and we only need this. But the more we use the sun and essentially the wind as energy sources, we're moving to electrified system rather than the old fossil fuel system. So where do you see this changing? Are we going to go to microgrid systems, which is going to be powered centrally from units like yours, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, I definitely see a transition towards more distributed generation, microgrids that are interconnected in mesh networks and digitally controlled through blockchain technologies. That to me is unquestionably the future of energy. Um, it's a really exciting time in the energy space because there's a number of new technologies that are coming online right now that are going to help facilitate this transition. The old model was to generate the power at a utility scale in a centralized location and then distribute that power across the country, around the world to the customer. Uh, but what many people may not realize is the friction in those power lines absorbs maybe up to 60% of the generated power before it actually gets to the customer. So it's not efficient, and installing new power lines is very expensive as well. So to me, the solution is to make power locally in that distributed generation manner, whether it be solar panels on the roof of your home, a wind turbine on your property, and then neighborhoods and communities are interconnected in microgrid networks so that when I'm making more power than I need on the roof of my house, but my neighbor needs some power, well, I can share electrons directly with my neighbor, and the blockchain technology facilitates the transfer of electrons for some currency. Might be Bitcoin or some other digital currency, but we have the technology to provide just this system. So given this functionality that we have available today, because of the advent of new technologies all coming together, solar, wind, battery storage, cryptocurrency mining, hydrogen generation, all of and smart microgrids, these all facilitate this new energy paradigm that, in my opinion, are going to make, I don't think we're going to see many more centralized power systems developed. I think there's going to be a much more focus on the distributed local generation.
And do you think, we're speaking about California there and all the forest fires, but ultimately, because of the lack of space, we're essentially building construction projects further and further closer to the desert, places and places where it's drier and drier, where the forests are dry. They're putting these massive, electricity cables going through there. So it takes very little spark to actually create forest fires in these areas. So do you think as they start to build further inland, this is where the likes of your turbines will be even more, I think the word, acquired more locally from people, from a residential perspective, rather than sort of connecting to the grid? Or how would that work?
Yeah, absolutely. When, population is rising, and as you see new community developments, now you're starting to see these community developers integrating localized power generation into this community development. So they're making the power locally. I'm actually working right now on a real project where there is a new community being developed just east of San Bernardino. It was basically a new city being developed out there. They've created the community, but the power authority is telling them it's going to be years before they're going to be able to deliver utility power to this community. So we're going to take the very platform that I just described of local generation, microgrids, on-site storage, and so forth to this new community, and this could be a really exciting pilot to demonstrate how this new energy system could potentially work.
So for the units you're making with Uprise, is it just for commercial use now, or can residential people, contact you, put in I know there's you've got a lot of orders coming in, but could they put an order in, but like a Tesla truck, this time next year, I could have one of my Uprise wind energy units just sitting in the backyard powering my Tesla?
Yeah, no, that's right. We've got a pretty impressive database of individuals that have expressed interest and that we're going to be fulfilling. I mean, it's tough for a startup that's developed this innovative technology that's needed around the world. But we're still a startup. We're still a relatively small team. So staying focused on what we're really good at, which is the design, engineering, innovation of new technologies, it's required a lot of willpower, I guess, to not get distracted by all of these neat opportunities and stay focused on our mission. But ultimately, as you said, we are selling units in volume to commercial customers, whether it be power utilities, construction businesses, or the federal government. But we're also setting up a dealer network that will be able to engage with the individual farm owner or local community that may want to buy 1 or 2 units for their application.
Yeah, and we've been speaking a little bit about the sort of commercial side, and I know your wife Rosa, who's the director of business development. One of her missions is to not be involved in women in energy, but also to go out to these communities and create energy, internet, etc. So explain a little bit about how you could actually drop in one of your units to an area that doesn't have any electricity and power, and then essentially how long will it take to bring power up? How much power will be with the battery, and how does that connect to the internet, the satellites, and everything? Just so our viewers can understand it.
Well, I love that question, but you also touched on something there a second ago, and that's women in energy. And I don't want to skip over that because that's a really important topic right now. As I said, I was at CERAWeek last week, and for those that are unfamiliar, this is probably the most prestigious global energy conference around the world. So there was a lot of key people there, but it also overlapped with International Women's Day. And there was a big women in energy theme there that brought pardon the pun, an excellent energy to the event. Seriously, it was something special. And so with the important role that Rosa plays in this company and some of the other women that we have on our team, Rosa was invited to some functions, including women leaders in energy, where she was engaging with the top energy women from around the world. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that she's doing and the doors that she's opening from her involvement, and and the importance that the diversity creates. Not only is she female in a male-dominated industry, but she's also Hispanic, and so she's a person, a minority. So she brings this dynamic to the company that's really creates a lot of value, and I'm really proud of her. Now, to answer your question about what a power delivery and setup might look like. So I'll use the emergency demonstration that we're going to do for the Energy Commission as an example. So our wind turbines, they're a mobile microgrid in and of themselves, because they generate the power from the wind and the sun, and they store that power in batteries that are in the trailer, and then they deliver the stored power to the community. Now, we put a very significant amount of battery storage in the trailer, 200 kilowatt hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries. So for our emergency demonstrations for the Energy Commission, we're going to deploy our turbines with that 200 kilowatt hours of battery fully charged up. So the moment that you arrive at the site where they need the power, you can plug right into the system, get all the power you need, and then you can set up the wind turbine and the solar, which, by the way, we talk about power in an hour. Well, that's because our entire wind turbine can be set up in less than 1 hour's time by one person, without any site improvements, without any heavy equipment, really no specialty training. So it's a real breakthrough in this mobility of renewable energy. This represents the largest portable renewable energy system of any type anywhere in the world by a considerable margin. So, but with the batteries, we can show up, get all the power we need, set up the wind and the sun, and those just keep the batteries charged up. So now you have a uninterrupted power source that's powered by renewable energy wherever you need it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I got to see this happen as well, everybody. And your dad did it, and you were saying even a senior citizen can do it in about 35 minutes. But then, he's an amazing engineer, so it'd be easier for him than anyone else since he was building it. But it just goes to show you, he did it all by himself in about 35 minutes, which was amazing to watch. You know what I mean? It was super impressive. And that was one of the original modifications of your product. So is it going to become a bit like Apple as well, Jonathan? Because it's like, the Apple came along, did the iPod, the iPhone, and they started to break it in. Now they do the iPad, and they started to do different products as well. And you've got this one doing 10 kV. But do you think you're going to do a smaller one for more residential and a bigger one going after the bigger generator market? Where's the future for the company?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So our 14 kilowatt portable wind turbine is designed so it folds up kind of like a transformer, and the whole thing fits into a 20-foot shipping container. So that's really what dictated the size of our wind turbines. What's the biggest system that we can build but still fit in a 20-foot shipping container? Now, we have a concept for a 50 kilowatt wind turbine, all the same functionality, but it would fit into a 40-foot shipping container. We've also talked about smaller units. So we have concepts around bigger and smaller, but at the moment we have so much demand for our 14 kilowatt unit, the first unit that we're commercializing, that that's where our focus is now. But in terms of complementary products, we've created some pretty good partnerships here recently. So, we talked about the partnership with AWS. I talked about the partnership with Rocket Truck that's developing the hydrogen fuel cell technology. I mean, I literally have a former MIT professor in the next room over and a senior SpaceX engineer sitting next to him. So we've got some really good brain power in here right now. So that's an exciting partnership, but we've also partnered with a very well-known battery and energy company that we're developing some portable battery solutions. So that creates a nice complement for our wind turbine, because now we're able to generate the power, but if we need to deploy a battery into a local area, that becomes easy because we can charge the batteries with the wind turbine and then just simply take the battery with the inverter into the area where they need the power, whether it's a community or a job site or a film set, you name it. It creates another level of versatility and a full 360 energy solution.
And then obviously, you're able to go into these areas, but for those of you who've never been next to one of these big diesel generators, they are loud,
Yeah.
super loud. So how is yours compared in terms of, the noise it makes? We're talking a film set, stuff like that. What noise does it make?
You and I could be having this conversation right next to the wind turbine when it's making its full power output without raising our voice. Yeah, we'll hear the blades cutting through the air and a little hum from the electronics that are controlling the system. But it's like I said, we wouldn't need to raise our voice in order to hear each other. It's very quiet, especially when you compare it to the alternative, the diesel generator.
Yeah, and then the other part of technology, I know we're coming on to the podcast, is this, dancing with the wind technology. Because obviously people say, well, if it's not windy or it becomes super windy, and I know some of the problems with big turbines is, they're looking for consistent wind speed to actually get to the proper generation. So how does yours work when it's low wind speed and then when there's high wind speed? Because I know you've developed technology to, capture the most amount of energy.
Yeah, that's right. We have a proprietary variable wind technology, and we've coined it "dancing with the wind," as you referenced. And what that is so the wind speed is never one steady speed. It's always speeding up and slowing down. Especially the closer to the ground level you get, the more variability there is in the wind. And so The energy in wind, however, it grows exponentially at the cube relationship of wind speed. So what that means is a small increase in wind speed yields a very significant increase in kinetic energy. Well, with our focus of creating the most power dense product that we could, the most efficiency that we could, we wanted to be able to capture these bursts of exponential power that are available in this constantly variable wind. Well, how do you do that? Well, the answer is that you vary the rotor RPM, so how fast is the rotor spinning, to match changes in wind speed. And so it always maintains a perfect relationship, or tip speed ratio, as they refer to it in the industry, with the oncoming wind. And so what we've created is exactly the same way that my electric vehicle and all the other electric vehicles on the road use regenerative braking to bring the cars to a stop and charging the battery in the process. Well, we use exactly that same technology to control the rotor speed, so we always maintain this perfect relationship. And our proprietary power control system is making little micro adjustments to the system 300 times per second to make sure that we always have this perfect relationship. So, we start with a very, very efficient turbine blade, more than double the efficiency of the incumbent technology. We build it out of carbon fiber, so it's very lightweight, very strong, but it has low inertia, so that when these changes in wind speed come along, the turbine wants to react quickly, and then we leverage the speed of electronics to harmonize with this wind. And what this yields is a exceptional performance out of a relatively small wind turbine that's also portable, which in and of itself is a unique feature.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So we're just coming to the end of the podcast as well. Do you want to share any information about stuff coming up with the company and how they can find out more about you, Jonathan, and the company itself?
Well, sure. So, we're active. We always have stuff going on, and we're getting really close to doing some of these demonstrations for the Energy Commission. So there's going to be a lot of activity coming out around that. We're working with Amazon about sharing our stories together and working together. You can find Uprise Energy online. We're available on all the major social platforms at Uprise Energy. We're upriseenergy.com, where you can dig into the details. And if anybody's interested in talking to me directly, I'm Jonathan at upriseenergy.com. Or you can find me on Twitter.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thanks very much, Jonathan. That's been great to learn about the company. We'll bring you back on board to speak about the developments going forward. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast today.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, and look forward to coming back sometime soon.
Okay, that's great.
All right,
okay.
Cheers.
Thanks to everyone watching today. You've been watching Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alistair Caithness. Have a nice day.